Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are Ohio.
In Detroit, Michigan, a gorgeous night for baseball. We welcome you to Comerica Park. A brief two-game stop for the Reds before these two teams both travel to Cincinnati to start a two-game series at Great American Ballpark tomorrow night. The Reds and the Detroit Tigers. Hi again, everybody. Alongside Chris Welsh and Jim Day, I'm Tom Brenneman. Welcome to Reds Baseball right here on Fox Sports Ohio. Michael Lorenzen has been mighty impressive, but for the first time, Chris, now he needs to bounce back from his first subpar outing as a major league.
You know, even though it was a subpar outing, when you take a look at the final numbers in his efforts, Tom, he still went right after the hitters. I mean, he didn't give in. He still pitched his game. He knows that he's going to have games like this, and really, in the big scheme of things, for a rookie, that is not all that bad of a game. He could have got out with a little bit less damage, but overall, he had 6 strikeouts in 4 1/3 innings. For me, he's got a repeatable delivery. He goes out there, he can have command of his fastball, and on those nights, he will be very difficult to handle. He's got a nice breaking ball, a good changeup. Remember, as a 23-year-old, he's still a plan in progress and a long way from the finished product.
What do we know about Detroit starter, left-hander Kyle Ryan?
Well, he's also 23 years old, and when you have Michael Lorenzen dialing it up to 96 miles an hour, Kyle Ryan, a left-hander, will really dial it up only to about 88 or 89. He's got kind of a funky motion. I call it a soft arm because he gets through and he's going to get a lot of hitters out on their front foot being deceptive. You're going to hit ground balls off of him when he keeps the ball down. And if he's in the strike zone, he can be very difficult to hit as well, only because he gives you something different than what you had last night, which is a right-hander with a little gas.
All right, when we come back, the Reds need to start getting it together on the road. They have really struggled outside of Great American Ballpark, where they're 4 games over 500. We'll have that story when we come back. You're watching Reds Baseball on Fox Sports Ohio. Ohio is brought to you by Cincinnati USA Regional Tourism Network. Stay close to CincinnatiUSA.com. By Chevy. Check out their award-winning lineup only at your Tri-State Chevy dealer. And by Skyline Chili, feeling good. It's Skyline time. Looking forward to getting back home. So too are the Reds, where they played very good baseball. The road, a wee bit different story. 11-22 overall, and you see they've won just twice in their last 15 road games. When we come back, the first pitch, the play-by-play action, and Jim Day will tell us about the red-hot Joey Votto.
Of a short two-game set here in Detroit. I'm Jim Day. It was a fast start to the season for Joey Votto in April. Cooled off in May, but of late, Joey Votto right back in the driver's seat. It's brought to you by Kia. Reached base safely in 24 straight games. That's the second longest active streak in Major League Baseball. And you go over the last 16 games, he's raised his average from 275 to 299. Tom Brenneman, Reds need him, particularly with a lefty on the hill tonight.
You are right about that, Jim Day. Nice to have you with us per usual. And great to have all of you with us on this just absolutely glorious weather night in the Motor City, Detroit, Michigan. Brandon Phillips to lead things off against left-hander Kyle Ryan. And it's low ball one. This one is underway. Mike Everett calls the balls and strikes tonight. Tim Timmons, the umpire, at first. Todd Tishner is at second base, and the crew chief, Tim Welke, the umpire, at third. Brandon pops it up and out of plate, even the count of the ball and a strike. Brandon back in the lineup on Sunday night. And backed it up with a starting nod last night. Hitless in 4 at-bats. Struck out and grounded out 3 times. Reds shut out on only 2 hits by Anibal Sanchez. 2-1. What about the repertoire of one Kyle Ryan?
Well, you're going to see a fastball around 88 miles an hour. He throws an off-speed pitch and a little bit of a slider. He gets a lot of ground ball outs on changeups and sliders down. Those are his records in the major leagues. Far better than what they were in the minor leagues. In fact, he was really kind of somewhat of an afterthought coming into spring training for the Tigers this year. He was way down on the prospect list compared to other guys who expected to make the team, like Shane Green, left-hander who was recently sent out. That gave Ryan the opportunity, and he's taken advantage of it. Just 23 years old.
Out of Auburndale, Florida, there's a 2-hopper to the shortstop, Iglesias, who throws out Brandon, and that's the way the first inning starts for the Reds. Let's look at Brian Price's starting lineup tonight, presented by Meyer. Ivan De Jesus Jr. to start tonight out in left field. Joey Votto, Todd Frazier, Jay Bruce at DH. Ryan Pena catching. A latter third of Chris Dominguez, who starts in right. Billy Hamilton in center field. Christopher Negron is a shortstop. The Reds made a number of transactions today. They recalled from Louisville right-hander Carlos Contreras and brought up right-hander Donovan Hand. They put John Moscott, who was injured in the game here last night with a dislocated left shoulder, his non-throwing shoulder. He goes to the disabled list. And the Reds optioned to Louisville outfielder Brennan Bosch.
So really what it tells you is they have an extra arm in the bullpen because they've been going through so many bullpen innings in the last week. They need to have a healthy arm down there, so that's why they brought up Donovan Hand and Contreras in the event they need some backup here tonight to Michael Lorenzen.
One ball and 2 strikes on Ivan De Jesus Jr. 6 hits in his first 21 at-bats wearing a Reds uniform. 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 6 runs batted in. And a left-hander Kyle Ryan. It is indeed a rather herky-jerky delivery, and that one caught the outside corner. A called third strike on De Jesus.
You know, Kyle Ryan is living proof that you don't have to be a 95-mile-an-hour fastball pitcher to pitch in the major leagues. All you've got to do is throw the ball where you want to. This time a little cutter right on the corner. That's one of his favorite pitches. Keep the ball down, be deceptive, and he is. He has a little bit of a hesitation at the very beginning of his delivery when he steps back, throws across his body, and throws softer than what he appears to throw. So as long as you don't throw the same speed you appear to throw, you've got some deception, and that's where his strength lies.
Well, here's the aforementioned Reds first baseman Joey Votto. He checks in at .299. 14 home runs, 36 runs batted in, 13 doubles for Votto. And again, they put on a big shift. He had a bunt hit in the game here last night. This one off the end of the bat into short right field, and making the catch is Martinez, and the Reds are gone in order against Kyle Ryan. Michael Lorenzen will try and do the same when we return. .30 down so far on the year. And Brad Ausmus, his second year as manager, led him to their 4th consecutive American League Central Division Championship a year ago. Stacks him up with Ghost in center, Kinsler at second, the amazing Miguel Cabrera at first. Cespedes in left, J.D. Martinez had a home run. In last night's game, he's in right. Tyler Collins at DH tonight, a latter third of Castellanos, McCann, and Iglesias against Reds' talented young right-hander, former #1 pick, Michael Lorenzen.
Yeah, really on the opposite end of the spectrum than his counterpart, the left-hander Kyle Ryan. Lorenzen, hard thrower, he can dial it up into the mid-90s as well as have pretty good control of his breaking stuff.
Lorenzen at first pitch breaking ball.
You love his aptitude and you love his mound presence. I mean, those are the first two things that really jump out at you when you see him pitch.
Well, broken back flare down the left field line. This will be extra bases for Ghost. He runs very well, and he's in with a blue double. That's just bad luck.
Makes a really good pitch right here, right off the end of the bat. Now, the thing that Michael Lorenzen's got to keep in mind here is not the thought of, here we go again. I mean, you've got to get out there and you got to battle, and you've got to be also thinking that in a game like this against the Detroit Tigers, who average more than 5 runs a game, you know, damage control here in the first inning might be more important way to think about things rather than saying, I'm going to shut them out under no circumstances am I going to allow a hit.
0-1 on Ian Kinsler. The first inning was tough for Lorenzen his last start after having not allowed a run in his first 6 starts in the major leagues in the first inning. He allowed a 1-out double to Anthony Rizzo. He walked Chris Bryant. And then remember, Miguel Montero hit that thunderous home run to straightaway center field. I mean, he mauled that pitch because that was a night where the weather was just brutal and the wind was blowing in off of Lake Michigan.
That was a night we didn't think anybody would hit a home run out in that area where Montero hit one.
He allowed another home run in the third inning to Dexter Fowler. And he's fallen behind Kinsler at 3 balls and no strikes.
Assume Kinsler will be swinging the bat here.
Good crowd on this Tuesday night. Beautiful ballpark here. And there's a strike on the inside corner. They draw very, very well. They're the 11th most populated city in the United States of America, if you include, of course, the suburbs. And the city, very, very small as far as the population goes, but the suburbs, there are a lot of folks living in the greater Detroit area. Three and 2 on Ian Kinsler. And we'll do it again. Quincer 3 times an All-Star with the Texas Rangers. Came to the Tigers a season ago. Went to the All-Star game wearing a Detroit uniform. Just a really good, solid player. And has been his entire career. That one pulled foul and not a play. Of course, you played on some of those Texas teams, Chris, where they had as good a lineup as any team has had in recent memory in baseball.
Yeah, and hitting in a ballpark, which is about as good a ballpark to hit in as you can imagine. Wind blowing out, thunderous pop in that lineup. He had some very good years. He's pretty quick on a fastball, too. He just pulled a fastball, pitched before last, 94. That one at 95. And now here's Lorenzen, who fell behind 3-0, is kind of peppering him right in there with those fastballs for strikes. I mean, this is the guy you really want to concentrate on, because in the on-deck circle, you have Miguel Cabrera.
Once more, the 3-2. This ball is driven a long way into right center field. Billy will go get it at the warning track, turns immediately to fire back in. And advancing on at third is Ghost. That was a good at bat by Ian Kinsler.
I think it was really a good at bat for the hitter and a good at bat for the pitcher, too. I mean, Lorenzen would much rather trade this than a walk where you put 2 runners on and nobody out for Cabrera. You know, I think one thing that hurt the Reds yesterday from a defensive outfield standpoint is the fact that they did not get to play any shag during batting practice. There was no batting practice, so the outfielders are still trying to get a feel for the dimensions out there.
And right through the shift. Hitting it the other way. The Reds had Brandon Phillips standing behind the second base bag. And I don't know how in the world you shift on a guy hitting 350. I mean, you hit 350, you can hit the ball everywhere.
Well, he certainly shows you why maybe you shouldn't, especially with the ball up. I mean, I'm not sure how they really want to pitch Miguel Cabrera. I doubt that there is just one way you can pitch him and get him out. Obviously not. But up and out over the plate, if you're going to have a shift on, is not the spot you go after him with. Got to get that ball down a little bit so he has a chance to roll over on it and pull the ball.
So 1-0 Tigers as Cabrera drives in his 48th run of this season. Just an RBI machine. Hitting machine is Miguel Cabrera. Tied with Mark Teixeira for the American League lead in runs batted in. Cabrera leads the league in hitting. He has the 5th most hits in the league, the 4th most total bases in the league, leads the American League in on-base percentage and slugging percentage. Low and away on Cespedes, 3 balls and a strike. Runs into the plate and a fly ball to right. Going to be played by Dominguez a step short of the warning track for the 2nd out of the inning. Let's look at the Reds on defense, presented by Ford. Hamilton flanked by De Jesus in left and Dominguez in right. Frazier and Votto on the corners. Negron and Phillips up the middle of the infield. And Lorenzen working with Brian Pena behind the plate. Here's J.D. Martinez. Showed off his extraordinary power to the opposite field. A home run last night, and talking to Rod Allen before this series ever began yesterday, the analyst over on the Tigers side. He said he thinks this guy has as much raw opposite field power as anybody in the entire American League. He said you can go through 2 or 3 homestands where left-handed batters don't hit him out where Martinez hit his to right center field over the highest part of that scoreboard in the game here last night. Look out. Line drive that Lorenzen is able to corral. Or it corralled him. So thankfully, Michael, quick reaction time. Tigers get on the run and lead 1-0 at the end of 1. On defense, presented by Ford. They'll go with Gose in center, Cespedes in left, J.D. Martinez in right. Same infield we saw last night, and McCann again behind the plate. Only changes for the Tigers outside of the man on the mound is their designated hitter tonight. It is Tyler Collins in there for Davis. Reds went down 1-2-3 in the first inning. So here's Todd Frazier, 289, 18 home runs, 39 batted in, 19 doubles for Frazier. That one got in on him, it looked like a little bit. And it's a fly ball to Gose to start the second inning. Jay Bruce coming up.
Kind of interesting story, really, on Kyle Ryan, and as much as he was a young man that was raised, as you said, Tom, in Auburndale, Florida, but that's only about 20 miles from Lakeland, which is where the Detroit Tigers have their spring training. So he's obviously well familiar with the Tigers organization, drafted in the 2010 draft in the 12th round. Worked his way up from the high school ranks.
Bruce, the first Reds base runner of the game, with a single into center field. And we remind you again, tonight we are participating in the Home Run Challenge. Every Reds home run in this game raises $12,000 for prostate cancer research. And we certainly would love to have you make a pledge if you're able. Just go online to homerunchallenge.org and keep Dad in the game. Father's Day weekend this weekend, Mr. Welsh.
Big weekend, isn't it?
It is a big weekend. Not as big as Mom's Day, Mother's Day, but it's a big day.
Well, the pressure's off you, though, on Father's Day as compared to Mother's Day, because you have to make sure that the kids are getting Mom the right presents, everything wrapped, the cards are done.
No doubt about it. Yeah, but you know that guy 2 blues down from us?
Yeah.
So are you suggesting the pressure is off of me? As well as you know him?
You've got to know that whatever you get him is not going to be exactly perfect anyway, so
well, I think
just accept it ahead of time.
51 years, I think I've got that part figured out.
But you never know. This might be the Father's Day when it all changes. He could probably use a dozen golf balls. He probably, to add to his 500 dozen, to store it up in the garage.
That's about right. Oh, and two to Brian Pena. And this is a tailor-made double play ball here, and that'll be all for the Reds in the inning. 6-pitch inning for Ryan. 1-0 Tigers after an inning and a half. By Elk and Elk. Most innings pitched by rookies so far this year. Tampa Bay, #1. And the most in the National League belongs to the Cincinnati Reds. The team share the most starts by rookies. 28 of them. And that includes a start tonight by Michael Lorenzen. Tigers with a 1-0 lead. They had a blue double and then a 1-out single by Cabrera to knock in the game's only run. Collins, Castellanos, McCann, the trio due up. And it's strike one to Tyler Collins. 13 hits and 47 at bats, a home run, a double, 2 triples. And this one straight up in the air behind the second base pad. 1 out. Both of these teams will be taking off almost simultaneously following the game tonight. And headed, of course, for the same destination, CBG, where the Reds and the Tigers will play a 2-game series at Great American Ballpark beginning tomorrow night. What a matchup tomorrow night. Johnny Cueto against left-hander David Price. Doesn't get much better than that.
Well, you're not kidding about that. And David Price has to feel like he can really empathize with Johnny Cueto, because for so many years he was talk of being a trade piece right at the trading deadline. And it's got to work on your psyche for a while. I mean, you know, we don't talk to Johnny Cueto a lot about this, but I'm sure it kind of gets into your skin. You're wondering, where am I going to be traded? If I'm going to be traded, will they offer me a contract instead? Will it be right before the game tonight, or will it be maybe at the trade deadline, or maybe not at all? And David Price went through years of this when he was with the Detroit Tigers, or when he was with the Tampa Bay Rays, always wondering if he was going to be moved or not.
High fly ball into right field, and Dominguez at the warning track calls it in. Castellanos retired for the second out of the inning. Are you playing fantasy baseball? Well, MLB.tv serves up real-time highlights and pitch tracking information on your out-of-market fantasy players live or on demand. Blackout and other restrictions do apply. Get MLB.tv today. If you're wondering when it finally came to fruition, what Chris was starting to talk about a moment ago, it was at the trade deadline last year where the Tampa Bay Rays made the decision, all right, we're going to go ahead and make the deal. The difference was Price had this year left on his contract. They got Drew Smiley, Austin Jackson, and Willie Adames did Tampa Bay in exchange for David Price. Austin Jackson was their regular center fielder here. Smiley, big prospect. And you wonder, you know, what really is the real difference in acquiring a guy in terms of what you're going to get back. And that ball hit the umpire. I think when the batter spun out of the way, it caused Brian Pena to lose sight of the ball running in. I think that's what happened. What do you think, Chris?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, the hitter comes out the last minute. Brian is down in that really low stance. And that ball gets away. It looks like he wants it down and in. The ball goes up, and it just goes right off the very tip of the lacing, right into the left shoulder of the umpire.
That is Mike Everett, the home plate umpire tonight.
Well, they were a chest protector, but I mean, when you're throwing as hard as Michael Lorenzen is, which is in the mid-90s, and you get it flush, that's got to really be a stinger.
Oh, man. Thankfully, he's all right.
Well, the good news is It's not his right shoulder. That's the strike calling shoulder, his right one.
You're always thinking. You're always thinking.
You don't want to have an umpire having a hard time calling strikes. But I got to tell you, in a situation like that, the apologies right now, and you know Brian Pena, he feels awful about that. Because umpires depend on catchers to catch the baseball unless it's foul off. And I'm sure he's just apologized many, many times. Say, hey, boss, won't let that happen again. Sorry about that.
So here's Jose Iglesias, a number 9 batter. I don't know how many number 9 hole hitters are batting .341. But that's exactly what Mr. Iglesias is hitting. He had 2 hits, was on base 3 times if you throw in a walk in the series opener last night. That one fouled off out of play, and it's 0-2 on Iglesias.
Well, Iglesias did a swing just like that in his first at bat last night. Hit a base hit to right field on a pitch that was up. Really a very smart bit of hitting. Might be a guy you want to keep the ball down against.
25-year-old Cuban missed the entire year last year with a tibial stress fracture. And speaking with someone who's had that broken bone in his leg, that hurts bad. I'm sure his was really bad. A bilateral tibial stress fracture. He opened 2013 with Boston before being traded to Detroit on July the 30th for a pair of players.
Well, I think the difference, though, Tom, between the stress fracture that he had and the one that you sustained, but he probably didn't do his, skimboarding out on the beach in Coronado.
You don't think he did? How do you know that?
Well,
do you know for sure he didn't do that?
I don't know for sure. I probably spoke too soon.
I'm going to ask him that tomorrow. I said, hey, didn't I see you out skimboarding? Weren't you laying down at the other end of the beach where I was? While your wife sitting back up there talking with all her friends. There's a bouncing ball down to third, and the force out within the inning. 1 left, end of 2, 1-0 Tigers. with Christine Sheltrown and Mo Egger from 700 WLW, the Holy Grail. Your chance to answer Reds trivia, win prizes, be part of Reds Live. Fun gets started Friday night at 6 o'clock at the Holy Grail. Of course, that's right there on Joe Nuxall Way. The Miami Marlins come rolling into town over the weekend after the Tigers are here, or in Cincinnati, on Wednesday and Thursday. Cabrera, a long run, is unable to get there. And a strike one on Chris Dominguez.
There's a lot of foul ground here at Comerica Park. And the other thing I noticed about this park, of course, we wouldn't have seen it last night, Tom, but tonight you see it quite clearly that I thought Great American Ballpark was the only ballpark around where left field was the sun field. But it's the same thing here. The way they've configured this ballpark, left fielders and center fielders are really looking right into the sun instead of the normal configuration where right field is a sun field.
Throw over to first in time by the shortstop Iglesias to take care of Dominguez, one away. A lot of talk in the last 24 hours about the possibility of Billy Hamilton becoming a right-handed batter only, no longer switch hitting. What about it, Jim Day?
Well, it's been a discussion that's been ongoing, and the Cincinnati Enquirer did a story on it and actually talked to Billy about it. And Billy admitted that he has thought about giving up hitting left-handed. He says he thinks about it all the time. Brian Price talked about this before the game, and he said organizationally they haven't talked about it yet. They would hate to give up on it so young into his career, but they also don't want to force the guy to do something that he doesn't believe in. They said that they will certainly not give up on it in the season, but it will be a discussion coming up in the offseason.
And, of course, Jim, that's exactly what Eugenio Suarez decided to do.
You know, there was a player that played for the Atlanta Braves for a while as a switch hitter. And when he was drafted #1 out of Bowles Academy in Jacksonville, he went to the minor leagues. And he was struggling mightily as a left-handed hitter. He was a switch hitter. And he told the manager, I no longer want to switch hit. I can't hit left-handed. So the manager said, well, okay. Now, back in those days, they didn't communicate with the front office quite as much as they do now. So after about 10 days, the people in Atlanta found out that their prized prospect had stopped switch hitting and was hitting only right-handed. And guess what? The player personnel director showed up down there in the Gulf Coast League, fired the manager, and said, young man, you will switch hit. And that is what you're going to do as an Atlanta Brave. And his name was Chipper Jones.
On the ground is short, and that will end the inning. Great story. I think it turned out to be a pretty good move. Let it break. Good move. as coverage of the 115th U.S. Open Championship live from Chambers Bay Golf Course begins at noon Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Continues in prime time at 8 p.m. Eastern on your local Fox station. And it's all streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Boy, you talk about a great time for the Fox families. Tonight, you have the U.S. women playing in the World Cup. Coverage of the United States Men's Open on Thursday gets underway. Major League Baseball over the weekend. My, oh my, doesn't get much better than that. And Reds baseball right here on Fox Sports Ohio. Ghost led off the game with just a little flare that barely landed in the outfield grass down the left field line. But because it was hit so softly, combined with his speed, it turned into an easy double. And then he scored on a base hit by Miguel Cabrera. And that is our only run of the night. You know, one thing we did not talk about tonight, Chris, I think floored everybody in the baseball world, as there's another little dinker. Are you kidding me? This time it'll be a single. So Dose a perfect 2 for 2. That guy's living right.
You got to have a little luck to get a couple of base hits like he has had. One on a pitch that was down and away. That pitch is up and in. And he throws it into the same spot out there. Watch him take the lead now. We saw him last night. He likes to run. And he takes a little bit of a lead. And then he inches off a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And for right-handed pitchers that have a hard time seeing the runner at first base, that can be a very effective way of getting an extremely good jump. Also a good way of getting picked off if you got a pitcher with a good move.
Well, the batter is Ian Kinsler. And we're going to wait a little while to talk about this story that broke today in the New York Times about the St. Louis Cardinals. Runner goes, and a swing and a foul ball out of play. The St. Louis Cardinals, if you haven't heard, are being investigated by the FBI for allegedly hacking into networks and trying to steal information about the Houston Astros. Major League Baseball, the Cardinals, and the Astros all issued statements earlier today saying they have cooperated fully with this investigation, which started over a year ago. That's how long this has been going on. Now, the Times reported that the FBI and the Justice Department have evidence that Cardinals officials, who, by the way, were not identified, allegedly tapped into the Astros database and had access to all kinds of information. And, of course, it surrounds the center figure being Jeffrey Luhnow, who is now the Houston Astros general manager and was with the St. Louis Cardinals before going to Houston. Now, we don't know anything definitive yet outside of what was reported, and we're going to have to wait a while to find out what is going to ultimately happen, if anything at all.
Well, it's very serious, first of all. I mean, it's corporate espionage is what they're calling it right now. But for the life of me, I'm scratching my head and say, well, what could they possibly have in their database that you would want to commit a felony to try to get? I mean, it's not like you're trying to dig up Colonel Sanders' fried chicken recipe. All you're trying to do is get some scouting reports on guys. Why don't you send out some scouts to do that? So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds.
Well, and 2 to Kinsler, taken up and away.
By the way, if you can get that fried chicken recipe, I know a guy that would really like to have it.
You got that right. Goes an ongoing conversation over there with Reds first baseman Joey Votto. And it's 1-2 to Kinsler. And again, although not quite Chris Wells-esque as far as the total number of throws over to first base. Were those consecutive, or did you throw a pitch in between?
In one at bat.
17 times.
Yeah.
You threw to first base.
Yes. And I immediately went into the Concessionaires Hall of Fame. Honorary member, but still.
Hey, and you're there emeritus.
I mean, you know how much cotton candy was sold during that one at bat to Willie McGee?
Yeah, but could people eat it while you were getting booed? In your own hometown ballpark.
They were coming out booing. I think even my family I left tickets for were booing.
And for those that have not heard the story now, I mean, this was your first game as a Cincinnati born and raised, well, not born, but a Cincinnati raised kid.
As
the pride of St. Xavier High School. And now you're finally having the opportunity to pitch for your hometown team. Your first game. And you're getting the.
I walked Vince Coleman, leading the league in stolen bases. And being a left-handed pitcher is a little different than right-handed because you can come to your set position and you can look him right in the eye. And I knew in my heart of hearts that he was going on every one of those 17 throwovers.
Still 2-2 on Kensler, who had a lengthy at bat his first time up. And a slow chopper. Brandon, how about that? Fielded the ball barehanded. Goes closing fast in a perfect feed, and they nearly turned the double play.
I'll tell you, that a very athletic play by Eugenio Suarez on this, too. Good job by Lorenzen for keeping a runner at first base. And in the air when he makes the transition, Suarez nearly gets his man at first. This is a dandy defensive attempt right there. Excuse me, that's not Suarez, that's Negron.
Well, here's Miguel Cabrera. The Reds are not going to put on nearly as dramatic a shift as they did the last time, I think, which surprised everybody, including even some of those that see the Tigers on a daily basis. When you consider that Miguel Cabrera, 3 times has won a batting title in his career? So he's a guy that really can hit the ball anywhere. And he just hit a little roller. He didn't hit it hard at all.
Well, but the pitch was up, and that's a perfect pitch to hit the other way. The Reds are still playing him over towards second base. I mean, the right side of the infield is wide open here.
Cabrera, 2-time American League Most Valuable Player. Won it in back-to-back years in 2012 and 2013. When he hit .330, .348, 44 bombs each year, and RBI seasons of 139 and 137. Slugging percentages up over 600.
Did you see Cabrera go over there and pick up Brian Pena's mask? Pena had momentarily lost the baseball, looked all around, couldn't find it. And Cabrera sensed that he was having such a difficult time, he went over and picked his mask up for him.
Well, there's a 4-pitch walk. Cabrera is the American League leader in on-base percentage. He leads the American League, all of baseball for that matter, in walks. Actually, second now walks, I beg your pardon, but is a leader in on-base percentage. 444. That was going into play tonight. He's been on twice. So a 2-on for Cespedes, who flat out to Dominguez his first time up. 2-on. And it's ball 1 low and away. This should be 2. There's 1. Phillips in time. And now to throw to the plate. Votto thought lost momentary track of how many outs there were, or maybe he just wasn't umpiring. That was a very alert play by Votto.
I agree.
He did not have time to see if the umpire had made an out call, and he wasn't going to take a chance. And he threw the ball to the plate just in case they had to get it out there. That's alert playing right there by Joey Votto. A double play ends the inning. Going to make sure the Tigers are not going to challenge. They're not going to. Just waved off by Brad Ausmus. So, we go to the fourth. Tigers lead 1-0. Cincinnati beginning Sunday, July the 12th. Tickets are available online at allstargame.com. It's hard to believe we are closing fast on that huge midsummer classic in Cincinnati's Great American Ballpark. The town will be looking great. Continue to hope and pray for great weather to showcase our spectacular downtown. Just can't wait to get there. Brandon Phillips begins the Reds' fourth inning with a fly ball to right. And that's out number one. So one time through the batting order so far tonight for left-hander Kyle Ryan, a pitcher who was 0-5 with an ERA of over 4.5 at the AAA level. And he has allowed one hit. That was a one-out single to Bruce. He threw the ball very, very well, as we mentioned earlier. His other start, when they brought him up to the big leagues for the first time to face the Chicago Cubs. But that game was against the White Sox. His last game was against the Cubs in relief.
Well, he made his debut against the White Sox last year, and all he did there was come out and pitch 6 innings of shutout baseball.
And then against the White Sox in his only start this year, 7 innings, 3 hits, and 2 runs. Now, how do you try to explain that, Chris? You can't win a game and you're getting kicked around at the AAA level. And you come to the big leagues, and the White Sox, that's a pretty good lineup now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just goes to show you, Tom, if you make your pitches, you'll eventually get guys out. You have better fielders here. You have better fields here. Maybe better scouting reports. And maybe just a style of pitching that you see in the big leagues. There aren't as many guys like Kyle Ryan around anymore.
Ball hit sharply. A sinking liner off the bat of De Jesus, caught by Goetz, 2 away.
I mean, he's a Martin Burley type, if you want to call it that. He's got fastball, sinker, cutter. I mean, I call that a little slider because it's a big cutter. Not much of a changeup very often. Doesn't throw a curveball. 6'5", 210, kind of funky. You know, when you're raised in Auburndale, Florida, you probably hunt and fish because it's a rural part of Florida for the most part. I mean, a lot of orange groves and phosphate mines, but his manager in AAA was Larry Parrish, former big league third baseman and a real outdoorsman. Well, they buddied up pretty good, these two guys together. And Larry Parrish asked him one day, well, what are you going to do after the season? I got a hunting and a fishing trip planned. Right in September, when the minor league season ends September 1st. And a week or two later, Larry Parrish said, hey, I got bad news for you. You're going to have to put that hunting trip on hold because you're going to the big leagues.
I think he was okay with that, wasn't he?
I think he was okay with that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. Those bats will be there when he gets there.
And then, you know, you come up to a team that's right in the hunt to win a divisional championship, which ultimately it did.
And I think when you come up to a team like that, Tom, you know, 90-win team last year, that you're not just up there as a rookie trying to prove your way into the major leagues. You're becoming part of a team effort. And you learn a little different way about going about your business because the whole emphasis is on winning. Not working hard, not developing, not taking your own, you know, worrying about what you do before the game. It's about what the result of the game is. Pretty good pitch right there.
That's a 3-1 fastball, belt high on the inside 20. I'm not sure if Votto thought it was a good pitch. Three balls and 2 strikes to Joey Votto. That was a breaking ball that stayed in. And Votto able to fight it off. Todd Frazier hoping for a chance on deck. Reds only have 1 hit in the game. And we're in the top of the 4th inning with 2 outs and nobody on. What a play that was by the catcher McCann. Wow. That's big league effort right there. And a little luck. Further by Meyer. Find more for a healthier you at Meyer. And by Cincinnati Children's, ranking 3rd in the country on the U.S. News and World Report's best children's hospitals in America.
Well, the strikeout that ended the inning, an outstanding play by the catcher James McCann. It's a foul ball off the plate or off the bat of Votto, but it goes right directly into the glove of the catcher. and then it bounces up into the air. If it bounced off any other part of his body before it hit his glove, it would not have been a strikeout. It would have been a foul ball. So a foul tip has to go directly into the catcher's glove. And tough break for Votto. And a very nice play by the Detroit catcher.
Ground ball to the shortstop. And Negron gets a start there tonight and throws out J.D. Martinez. The only run of the game came in the opening inning, if you're just joining us. Dose had a leadoff bloop double down the left field line, and with one out, Miguel Cabrera knocked him in with a bouncing ball into right. Tigers have had at least one base runner in each of the first 3 innings against Michael Lorenzen. He had a 2-out walk to McCann in the second. 1 on, 1 out. A walk to put 2 on in the third before he got Cespedes on the double play to end the inning.
Well, Michael did a nice job in the first inning of damage control. 2 of the first 3 batters got on base and just did not give in, and he's still not giving in.
Frazier has room over there. That'll take care of Tyler Collins for the second out of the inning. Well, coming up later on, we'll have our Miller Time moment. And that is brought to you by Miller Lite. Breaking ball taken high to Castellanos. He flied out to the warning track and right his first time up. Fastball at 93, misses up and in. And that one will sink out of play off to the first base side, even to count at 2-2 on Castellanos. Lorenzen trying to set the side down in order for the first time tonight. And Castellanos started and was able to check his swing, 3-2. Tigers come into play 4 games over 500. They're in 3rd place in the American League Central Division. Kansas City, the leaders at 10 games over, 3 better than Detroit. And there's a swing and a miss, and a 1-2-3 inning for the first time tonight for Michael Lorenzen. Pitching a good game on the short end of a 1-0 score. By IGF. In the first 62 games of a Red season going back over the last 100 years, Frazier's 38 extra base hits through those 62 games, the fourth most by any player. Hall of Famer Johnny Bench in 1970 had 3 more. Casey and Votto, 2 fewer than that. And here the Reds are 28 up, 35 down. Their 63rd game of the year tonight. So officially 100, including tonight, left to go. Now Ryan's been very, very good. He's only allowed 1 hit. And Frazier fouls it back out of play. Todd flied out to center field, his first time up.
You know, the key for a guy like Kyle Ryan is to really have confidence that your stuff is good enough to get the hitters out and throw strikes, because he's not the kind of pitcher that has the stuff to come back and strike out the side when he starts getting behind hitters and walking batters. And he throws it slow enough that you get a pretty good look at it. I mean, there are a lot of really hard throwing pitchers that you don't swing the bat because you realize when it comes out of his hand it's too late. So you check swing. But when you're throwing 87 or 88 miles an hour, after seeing on a nightly basis 95, you see that 88 mile an hour fastball. But the problem with Ryan is some are cutting, some are darting down, get you out on your front foot, and you get a lot of swings like that. I mean, you really have to commend the Detroit Tigers for taking a chance on this young man. When you look down the minor leagues and you see his record is 0-5 in AAA. That's mixing him up right there with that pitch repertoire.
Well, bye-bye. Frazier lays into one to deep left center field, and this will tie the game. A long ball for Todd Frazier. Number 19 on the season. Tell you what, that ball was hit a long way, and it just cleared the wall out there in left field. You got to hit it a ton to get it out of here that way.
Yeah, this ballpark doesn't give him up easy, does it? I mean, kind of a typical Frazier home run, which is more like a line drive, although that he got under that a little bit more than normal. But that is centered. Wow.
When it left the bat, I thought that baby would be about 15 rows back.
Agreed.
Well, what a year Frazier is putting together. I mean, he has been a force in the middle of this Reds lineup. Batting average up over 290, team best 19 home runs, leads the club with now 40 runs batted in. He has 19 doubles, that's a team high.
39 extra base hits for Frazier, most in the major leagues.
Hey, what now? It's a very, very interesting article. You know, for a long time there, Matt Carpenter was just having an ungodly year for the St. Louis Cardinals. And now all of a sudden, you start stacking up Frazier's numbers alongside Carpenter, and there is no debate as to who should be the third baseman. There's a drive to right by Bruce, and it is gone. They go back to back. Snuck inside the fair pole down the right field line. A lot of Reds fans here tonight. I mean, a ton of them. And the Reds have their first lead in this two-game series.
So the question was whether it was going to stay fair. Oh, inside fastball right there. Bruce gives it a jerk. All right.
So a 2-1 ball game. Reds in front. We talk about this stat frequently. Bruce with more home runs as a left-handed batter against left-handed pitchers than all hitters in baseball since 2010. 53 of them now for Jay Bruce. And this one gives his team the lead. Ryan Pena chops one off his foot. 1 ball and 1 strike to Brian Pena. As you probably know, Detroit was home for Brian Pena for the 2013 season. That's before the Reds made the decision to sign him and give him a 2-year contract as a free agent. Got a chance to play in the division series, LCS that year. Played in 1 game against Boston. Had 1 hit and 1 run batted in. They really picked their spots where they played him that year, and it led to a career best .297 batting average that year for Pena, because they almost exclusively locked him up in a starting role when a right-hander would be on the mound. Now, he wasn't a regular guy, but he made 54 starts, hit .325 against right-handed pitching that year. And a real good at bat by Pena. It stays 3-2. Young Michael Lorenzen given a 1-run lead on the back-to-back home runs from Frazier and Bruce to begin this Cincinnati 5th inning. There's a dribbler to short. And Iglesias throws out Pena for the first out here in the 5th. We couldn't ask for a more beautiful summer day than we had today. You know, we hear all the time about, all the terrible things that have been going on in downtown Detroit over the last number of years. But I tell you what, man, the suburbs, they are really, really nice. And that area where we stayed out this trip for the first time ever in one of the suburbs, Birmingham, Michigan. If you're ever passing through this part of the country, and a lot of Cincinnatians come to Michigan primarily for the lake living in the summertime or summer vacations, and they have those beautiful lakes all over this entire state. But if you're passing through sometime, well, I would highly recommend making a stop for a night or two in Birmingham. Boy, is that a beautiful place.
It really is.
Reminds me a lot of that plaza area in Kansas City.
Quite a ways from the ballpark, though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there are a lot of Tiger fans. I mean, we don't really get the feel for Tigers because we only play them, every just few years. They've got a real rabid fan base.
Well, it's one of the great original franchises of Major League Baseball, like the Reds. There's strike 3 called to Dominguez, and that's the 3rd strikeout of the game for Ryan.
Well, he just keeps pecking away at that outside corner and finally got a couple of inches outside to Mike Everett. Said enough is enough. Well, they've had a lot to cheer about lately, too.
Yes, they have. Hamilton trying to bunt his way on, and that is real easy to end the inning. Reds flexing their muscles, however, for the first time in this series. Frazier, number 19. Bruce, number 10. And the Reds have a 1-run lead. ticket offer this Friday through Sunday. So it's coming up this weekend thanks to Reach Savings Magazine. You know the drill. 4 tickets, 4 Reds hats, $48. You're not going to beat that anywhere. Call 513-381-REDS for tickets. Reds and the Marlins over the weekend. James McCann, Jose Iglesias, and Anthony Gose. The trio in the Tiger fifth against Lorenzen. Michael had his first perfect inning, his last inning.
You were talking about the fan base here, Tom, and they have had a lot to cheer about. I mean, last year they were in the playoffs. They were in the playoffs in 2013, although they lost each of those playoffs. In 2012, they were in the playoffs. In 2011, they lose the ALCS to the Rangers. And they were in the World Series as recently as 2006 when they lost to the Cardinals. When they beat the Cardinals 4 games to 1. And they have a little history with the Reds when you go back to 1940 when they lost the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds in 7 games.
I have a question for you about that 1940 World Series, okay? In that World Series, it went 7 games. The Reds won Game 7 with Paul Derringer on the mound, a 2-1 ball game.
Yep.
Okay. In that game, he beat Bobo Newsom. Newsom started 3 games in that World Series. Won 2 of them, but lost Game 7 to Derringer. Now, here's a question I have for you. In Game 1 of that World Series at Crosley Field, the attendance was 31,793. Game 2 was 30,460. They go out of town to Tiger Stadium for 3-4-5. Game 6, the attendance was 30,000. In Game 7, the attendance was 26,000. Now, I know that I am far from being the sharpest tool in the proverbial shed, but could you please try and explain to me how the lowest attended game of that series played in Cincinnati had 26,000 people?
I wouldn't know where to begin to explain that. What's your idea?
I don't know. I just thought that was rather peculiar.
Yeah, it's amazing see, some people look through the box scores and they just get the final tally of the game, winning pitcher, losing pitcher. I mean, but you're getting every minute detail there.
I just look for the little things. I mean, look, a monkey can tell you that Derringer won the game over Bobo. But I'm just wondering what was going on in Cincinnati, and there might be somebody out there that knows the answer to this question. There's a bunt, barehanded. What a play by Frazier. Boy, that's a big league play. Tying run advances into scoring position, but beautifully done by Todd Frazier. Iglesias can run a little bit.
Well, that's a part of his game that he has worked very hard on, becoming an all-star caliber third baseman. And I mean, you bunt ball like that he makes it look so easy. But when you're trying to barehand a ball that is still rolling like that, there are a lot of guys that just don't make that play.
All right, so here's Gose, who's hit 2 just bloop shots into left field. A double and a single and a run scored. He only has 1 home run. And I'll tell you, DeJesus is in a little bit. Now, you can't come into play in where he had the doubles, because he'd be standing barely off of the infield dirt for that to happen. But everything is being hit the other way. I mean, look at this. This first one just died in the grass. And then the next one ran in on it. And just a little pop-up. But it's 2 for 2. Right now, Lorenzen ahead 0-2. And a fly ball to left field. And this time, DeJesus has to back up on it. He can't make the play. Darned if you do, darned if you don't. And in fairness to Ivan DeJesus Jr., he had never played left field until the Reds brought him up a little more than a week ago.
Boy, he had it in his glove and it just squirted out when he went down on the ground. Tough break.
So here comes Ian Kinsler, who is flying out to center field. And bounced into a fielder's choice on a ground ball at Brandon Phillips. That is ruled an error on Ivan DeJesus Jr. Now Lorenzen with work to do. The Reds no sooner take a one-run lead, and now all of a sudden the Tigers are threatening to tie it up, if not take the lead again. Runners at second and third on a single, a sacrifice, and an error. Straight up in the air, and this is not going to do it. Phillips the catch. 2 away in the inning. Well, there is absolutely zero debate as to what will transpire now, right? There is no way you're pitching to Miguel Cabrera, right?
I wouldn't think so. And there is no debate about it. They just took one look into the dugout, and Brian Price is telling Brian Pena, let's just give him 4 and send him on his way.
Now that's not chump change standing there in the on-deck circle. You're talking about a guy who's hitting well over 300. Socks a ton of power in that bat in Cespedes, and he has 34 runs batted in. But this is the best hitter on the planet. You are not going to let him beat you. So Lorenzen now has to bear down. He has retired Cespedes twice in the game. Once on a fly ball to right, and got him on a double play ball on a grounder that started to the shortstop his last time up, ending the 3rd inning. Now Michael will work out of the stretch. And here it comes to Cespedes. Strike 1. First pitch breaking ball by Lorenzen.
I think it was a fastball. It just had so much tail on it, Tom. It may have looked like a breaking ball, but boy, you got to admire the way he comes just right after him with a strike, not trying to nibble around. That ball was on the corner, but still definitely a strike.
Well, I must have been looking at the pitch count. I saw 83.
No.
And that was the pitch count, so I beg your pardon. That was another fastball at 95 from Lorenzen, who has now 85 pitches in the game. 1-1 on Cespedes. Now that time it was a breaking ball. And he gets ahead at 1-2. All right, so walk us through what you're thinking now. You throwing him fastball, you throw him a 1-1 hook.
He didn't have a very good swing at that pitch. Now you can expand the strike zone a little bit. You don't have to make this a strike. You're ahead. So whatever pitch you decide to throw really is insignificant as compared to where you throw it.
Well, he came back with a fastball, 96 miles per hour, away from him. All right, so you went breaking ball. You're still in a 1-2 count. Same philosophy or anything different?
Well, you know, I think they may go breaking ball here. And again, you want to expand the zone. You want to make this pitch look like a strike and end up being a ball.
Bases loaded. Reds lead by a run. 2 outs. Line drive off the body of Lorenzen, and a run is going to score. Here comes a second run, throw to the plate, and he is out at the plate. Votto getting to that ball so quickly after it hit Lorenzen, and trying to score all the way from second base was Ghost. So it is a tie game. The first run counts. The Tigers probably are going to look at this. This will be scored, an infield hit for Cespedes. And then alertly, Votto picks it up, fires home, and the call is out at the plate. And it looks like the Tigers have already made the decision they will challenge this call. I'm sure what they're thinking here is that by the time Pena got the mitt down, had Ghost already slid between his legs to get to the bag, the plate. As that tag came high. Meanwhile, the Reds training staff, led by Paul Assard, is taking a look at Lorenzen on the mound. Brian Price coming out. One of the other umpires comes over as well. This is a Tigers challenge. The call on the field. Out at home is the call.
Tim Welke is on your left. He's the crew chief. Mike Everett, the home plate umpire, made the call. And they're showing it over and over again on the scoreboard here at Comerica Park. And Tiger fans like what they see. I don't know how it's going to end up. Welke, by the way, is back home. The umpire on your left is from Pontiac, Michigan. He and his brother Bill raised really just not too far from here at all. In fact, that's where the old football stadium.
Yep. Pontiac Silverdome. That's where the Bengals played in one of their Super Bowl appearances, losing that heartbreaker to the 49ers the first go-round, when they couldn't get in from a 2 with Pete Johnson 4 times in a row. Big Pete.
You still remember that pretty clearly.
I do. I mean, he was a man now. And the 49ers, hey, they stood up and made the plays. Pete Johnson was the most rugged runner in the league. Weighed about 250 and ran like the wind.
They're not doing much with that stadium anymore up there in Pontiac, are they?
No, somebody told us out last night they're getting ready to, I think, tear it down. They're talking about somebody tearing it down. And here's that look one more time. The bat you see is right there. Boy, that's a dangerous play. And again, there are 3 options they have here. Call's confirmed, the call stands, or it's overturned. Is there enough video evidence there to overturn the call? That's what it all gets down to. There is a distinct difference between stands and confirmed, but the verdict ultimately remains the same. Well, it's taking a long time. Normally it doesn't take this long. If you got to look at it this many times, I don't know how you overturn it.
Well, you're trying to get it right. Now, if you look at this very closely, is his foot on the bag or on the plate before he's able to get the tag down?
Here we go. Out at the plate. The call stands, is the official verdict. It's a tie game. 2-2 at the end of 5.
Yeah, obviously it's not where I want to be right now. Starting to get in the groove out there, and this team doesn't need any more injuries, but it just is what it is, and try and bounce back as quickly as possible.
And in talking with John Moscott today, he's stayed with the team. He will meet with Reds doctors tomorrow, and they will find out the severity of that dislocated shoulder and whether or not it requires surgery. If it requires surgery, obviously his season is done. They have told him, though, at least at this point, if it doesn't require surgery, there is a chance that he could make it back and pitch this season. And he also said, hey, hindsight being 20/20, I should have given up the ball on that rundown play.
Well, the good news is, again, and you said it, Jim, we talked about it last night. I mean, look, it's terrible and it's too bad the young man's going to miss some time, but the bottom line is, in this day and age, Chris, and we talked about the difference between pitchers that have to undergo shoulder surgery as opposed to elbow surgery in this day and age. They come back more times than not throwing harder or better than they ever did with an elbow injury. That's not the story with his shoulder, and this is not his pitching shoulder.
Well, that is the good news, and that would make him able to come back much sooner, obviously. And in the case if he has surgery, it's not going to affect his throwing arm anyway. Before, he was in pain until they popped it back in place in the Reds clubhouse last night. I was talking before the ball game with the Reds pitching coach Jeff Pico and the bullpen coach Matt Jenkins. And Jenkins told me that he actually had dislocated his throwing shoulder as a minor leaguer while he was pitching. And, explained to me that, if you stretch the ligaments too much, that's when you'll end up needing surgery.
McBrone leads things off, a bouncing ball to third, and he's thrown out. And that's the way it starts in the 6th inning of this 2-2 game.
Well, the Reds really haven't mustered a lot of offense against this young 23-year-old left-hander. The runs they gotten off of Kyle Ryan have come back-to-back by Frazier and Bruce. In fact, the Reds' 4th time this year, the Reds have gone back-to-back. Frazier was involved in the last time it happened. That was against the Phillies when he was joined by Joey Votto in that.
Ground ball by a diving Iglesias into left field, a base hit. I need to correct something I said a moment ago about that Super Bowl you brought up at the Silverdome. The Bengals actually 3 times inside the 3-yard line handed the ball to Pete Johnson. 1st down, 2nd down. 3rd down is when they threw the swing pass to Charles Alexander, who was tackled at the line of scrimmage, kept him from reaching the end zone, but highlights showed later that Alexander actually entered the end zone. Had there been replay then, the Bengals would have won that Super Bowl. And on 4th down, they gave it to Pete Johnson one more time. Ronnie Lott there to stop him from no gain. Boy, that was a great day really in Cincinnati history. First time the franchise had ever been to the Super Bowl. Collinsworth had an incredible game in that game at wide receiver. Pitch taken up and away. I was a senior in high school, and man, I mean, that was the biggest thing that ever went on. After the Reds in the World Series of the 70s, I mean, when the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl, that was incredible. One and 0 on DeJesus with Brandon on at first. 2-0 now. Ivana struck out and he lined out to center field his last time up. See if the Reds can get the lead right back.
Not much of a move by Ryan, but what he does very well is that he changes the amount of time that he holds a baseball before he either goes to the plate or goes to first. And he's not afraid to hold it a long time. So you try to freeze the runner, and you also kind of upset the timing of the hitter sometimes.
Well, Brandon, he looked like something out of a cartoon. His feet kept moving, but nobody was going anywhere. It was almost that Willie Mays Hayes, where he dove in. Guys standing there waiting with the ball. Come on.
A lot of times when a pitcher will hold it that long, the batter will ask for timeout. But the younger the player you are and the less time you have in the major leagues, the more likely you're not to ask for timeout because you don't feel comfortable enough. And I think that's where Ivan De Jesus Jr. is right now. Two and two. I mean, you wait. You're wondering in the batter's box, is he going to pitch or is he going to stand there all night? Well, he has been on that corner. I mean, just living on that black.
And Ryan O'Kay's assigned with his catcher McCann. And again, a throw over to first. Brandon has 8 stolen bases, been thrown out 1 time. Now, Jim Day, we talk all the time about how close you and Brandon are. And, he had the turf toe injury, which sidelined him for a couple of games. Came back. Then he injured the groin a week ago. Set out a few games, came back just 2 days ago. Have you talked to him lately? Is the toe still causing him any problems?
Toe's going to be there all year, but he hasn't re-aggravated it, if you will, of late. So we haven't seen the hobbling. The groin injury was certainly something that was troublesome, and they were worried about that. But he's feeling better, and he's certainly in better spirits. And when they were thrown over earlier, he was throwing dirt on Miguel Cabrera's shoes after he went back into the bag and then wiped his hands on the seat of Cabrera's pants. So the humor's always there.
Down on a play. Well, obviously, Brandon is very comfortable in hanging out with Miguel because that's one of those, the old Jim Croce teams. You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit in the wind.
A couple of all-stars there. I mean, when you reach that level of play, they have their own kind of thing going out there.
You don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Miguel. Is that the way that song went?
Just
swinging
like
a bit. 4 strikeouts. Tomorrow night on an all-new Reds Weekly. It's a great show. Danny Grace, we just saw him. What's he up to these days? See the unique way Brian Pena prepares for a game, and Pete Rose talks about repairing a fractured friendship. All tomorrow on Reds Weekly, hosted by Jeff Pecoro and Doug Flynn. That'll get started at 6 o'clock on Fox Sports Ohio. Then Reds Live begins at 6:30. And our game coverage, Reds and the Tigers, Cueto v. Price, starts at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. All right, here's Joey Votto. 0 for 2 in the game, is fly to right and struck out. And a high fly ball down the left field line is playable. Crossing in the foul ground, Cespedes to end the inning. 1 left, middle of the 6th, the 2-2 affair.
As part of Super Saturdays, will receive a Brandon Phillips bobblehead. It's brought to you by the fine folks from Fox Sports Ohio. You know them. For tickets, log on to reds.com/tickets and select Kroger locations. I'm Jim Day, and that bobblehead's going to be a very, very popular item. In fact, it's popular in the opposing dugout. Earlier today, David Price sent out this tweet. It says, hey, your bobblehead comes out in a couple of days. A couple days after we play y'all in Cincinnati. I'm going to need that for my mom. Much appreciated. I talked to Brandon about it before the game. Him and David Price are pretty good friends. They give each other grief back and forth. And apparently, and Brandon didn't know this, David Price's mom is a Brandon Phillips fan. So he said, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So he will be providing David Price with a Brandon Phillips bobblehead.
Well, that is very, very nice. And you're right about mom being happy. That is priority numero uno. Price will be on the hill tomorrow night against Johnny Cueto. Well, we can't wait for that matchup. That is going to be a good one.
Well, the Tigers, you can say that they just hit the jackpot with J.D. Martinez. Came up with the Astros, drafted, came up through their organization, called up to replace Hunter Pence on the big league roster 2011, but then they released him March of 2014 in spring training.
Broken bat deep in the hole, and they gave it a good effort, but can't get it. Infield hit.
So Martinez signs a non-roster minor league deal with the Detroit Tigers last year in spring training, 2014. So he goes to AAA. In his first 17 games in AAA, he hits 10 home runs and drives in 22, and they say, get up here. And now he's a force right in the middle of the lineup.
Well, you know, it got so bad that for Martinez, he went back and they said that he watched video of Miguel Cabrera, of Albert Pujols, of Ryan Braun. Votto's going to throw to second, get the out there. Votto's had a very good night on defense tonight.
It's a nice play right there.
And he'd be the first to tell you that there have been games this year where it's not been pretty for Votto at first base on defense.
Well, he just plays an unconventional type of defense. I mean, just goes about it in just a little different way. But he gets that ball right on the money with a throw. Gets the lead man. It was not a good bunt. He was charging hard. That's why you charge hard, so you take a shot like that. But you still have to get the ball to the fielder.
And that's one thing you always like about Votto is his aggressiveness in fielding that ball. He always has second base on his mind. And if you watch enough games, there are a lot of players that are not comfortable at all as first basemen, turning and firing to second base.
You're right. On the other hand, there are a lot of first basemen who are converted third basemen, like Miguel Cabrera, Albert Pujols. Those guys, they can't wait to throw the ball across the infield. And Votto was tried. I think, wasn't he originally drafted as a catcher?
Yes.
He was tried at third base. He was tried in the outfield a little bit in the minor leagues. Been a good game so far for Lorenzen. That's a potent lineup that he has faced. And he's pitched out of a couple of jabs. He's only had 1, 2, 3 innings.
You look at some of the hits tonight, Chris. Really, the broken bat single by Martinez to start this inning.
Both of them by Ghost.
Yeah, both of them by Ghost. And that's half of their 6 hits in the game against Michael tonight. And 2 of those led to a run. No, he had the misplay by De Jesus and left, and we added the caveat that in fairness to Ivan De Jesus Jr., he'll be the first guy to be a stand-up guy and say, look, that's a play I should have made after the ball game. But he is a young man that has been primarily a middle infielder his entire professional career. And had never played outfield in the big leagues until the Reds brought him up more than a week ago. What a pick that is by DeGrom to start the double play, which ends the inning. We're off to the 7th, and a good one tonight in Detroit. Especially on defense. Played 24 years in the major leagues. Of course, his idol growing up was a Red shortstop, Davy Concepcion, both hailing from Venezuela. Concepcion spending all 19 of his incredible years with the Reds. 9 All-Star games, 5 Gold Gloves. Vizquel 3 All-Star games, 11 Gold Gloves. And we'll break down some of their numbers from an offensive standpoint over the next couple of nights. As Frazier hammers one to left center field. Does he have his second of the game? You better believe it. And the Reds lead 3-2. Home run number 20 for Todd Frazier. That ball was hammered. Oh boy, what a year.
Just so strong.
63rd game of the year, and that's his 20th home run.
Well, they went back-to-back in the 5th inning. Maybe they do it again here.
Well, for Frazier, that moves him into sole possession of 3rd place behind Giancarlo Stanton, who we'll see at Great American Ballpark on Friday night of the Marlins. He has 23. Bryce Harper has 21. Then Frazier with 20. But as Chris brought up earlier, Frazier leads all National League players in extra base hits now with 40 of them. 2-1 to Bruce, who homered just inside the fair pole down the right field line. His last time up, Bruce also has a single. Now you start wondering, Chris, Michael Lorenzen at the 100 pitch mark. He's given up 6 hits. Walked 3, 1 intentionally. Do you send him back out there one more time in the 7th with 8, 9, and 1 coming up in the batting order?
Well, I think you do, Tom, because the uncertainty of going to the Reds bullpen right now is a question mark for Brian Price. Now, there's Ryan Matthews. He's been somewhat dependable. J.J. Hoover has been dependable.
Yes.
And, of course, you just want to be able to figure out a way to get it to Aroldis Chapman. There's Chapman sitting right next to Michael Lorenzen. He knows that he doesn't get the call till late.
Well, the pitching coach, Jeff Jones, come out. First time that we've seen him visit the mound in this series. He didn't even need to talk to Anibal Sanchez last night. By the way, to hit a moment ago, forgive me, Chris, before I forget, that was a 500th career hit for Todd Frazier.
Alex Wilson.
So congratulations to Frazier, his 500th career hit. And it is his 20th home run of this season. First walk of the game given up by Ryan. And here's Pena, who started to show bunt.
Frazier has 500 hits and 93 of them are home runs.
Pena, long look down to Jim Riggleman. Pena does have one sacrifice so far this year. He's still not seen a pitch in this at bat. Now he shortens up. Ryan a long look over, and well, Ryan's starting to look a lot more like Chris Welsh.
Got a ways to go. And I don't think anyone ever has mistaken Jay Bruce for Vince Coleman.
No, but he might see something in his eyes. Pena,
that's a good bunt.
Perfectly done, and that'll advance the runner. One out in the inning. Great job by Pena.
And he does it to the right side of the infield, which is make sure that the charging third baseman isn't going to make a play at second base on you, because Cabrera's not going to charge on that ball, and that is going to be a hook now as Brad Ausmus is walking out to the mound. Looks like to make a pitching change.
They'll bring in Alex Wilson to face Chris Dominguez, who's coming up for the Reds. Ryan pitched good game here tonight. Giving up 3 runs in 6 1/3 innings. The runner, of course, at second is his responsibility, his only walk of the game. And a nice round of applause from the Tiger faithful for Kyle Ryan. This will be our Skyline Chili call to the bullpen. Back in a moment.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Cincinnati Reds and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, the right-hander Alex Wilson in for the 20th time as a pitcher, 31 innings overall, a very good earned run average, and throws strikes. First year with the Tigers. He's had parts of the last couple of years in the major leagues, up and down with Boston. Young man born in Saudi Arabia. Father worked for Texaco.
You know where he lives now, don't you?
Hurricane, West Virginia.
How about that? Ground ball to short, and the tag made by Cabrera to take care of Dominguez. With Jay Bruce advancing on the third, 2 outs in the inning. Boy, now you wonder why Hurricane, West Virginia. Well, he went to high school there.
At Hurricane High.
Attended Texas A&M University and then pitched for Winthrop University prior to his transferring to A&M.
Came over in the deal from the Red Sox and brought the outfielder Cespedes.
Billy Hamilton, a little floater into left center field. It's a base hit. And Hamilton drives in a run. So it comes from the left side. His first at bat tonight from the left side after all the talk about, thinking about batting right-handed only. Well, he didn't hit it all that hard, but he couldn't have thrown it out there better. And now the Reds have a 4-2 lead.
And he goes down and gets a good pitch right there. That's one of those things where you get a good pitch up there and it comes out with a bad result from the pitcher standpoint. Reds are due to have a blue call in there.
After the home run, Bruce draws a walk. Pena, give him credit in part for this run. Sacrificing Jay into scoring position, and then with 2 outs, Hamilton, who has 31 stolen bases. He stole 5 to tie a Reds franchise record at Wrigley Field in Chicago 2 nights ago. There he goes. And a throw down to second base is in time to get him. Just 5th time all year long. He's been thrown out. We talked about McCann. He's throwing him out at better than 48% on the year. Frazier a home run. Hamilton a 2-out single. The Reds lead by a pair.
Ohio. All-Star game coming up in Cincinnati. Let's do another All-Star spotlight. Take you back to 1941, July 8th. Here in Detroit, it was held at Briggs Stadium, and Ted Williams, a 2-out, 3-run walk-off home run to lead the American League to a 7-5 victory. It was certainly one of the iconic moments in All-Star history. Reds representatives that day, Lonnie Fry, Bucky Walters, Frank McCormick, and Bill McKechnie was the manager. Teddy ball game. Boy, I tell you what, we were having a discussion the other day of guys that you didn't get to see play that were before your time, of who you would like to see play in a game. And Ted Williams is certainly in my top 3.
Oh, yeah. You know, we were reminded up here in the booth yesterday that the last time the 1971 All-Star game, they played at Tiger Stadium as well. 23 Hall of Famers in that All-Star. 23. All right, it's up to the Reds bullpen to get the final 9 outs. That bat is littered all around the home plate area. Hit off the end of the bat by McCann on the very first pitch thrown by Ryan Matthews on in relief from Michael Lorenzen.
Good job by Michael Lorenzen. 6 innings of 2-run baseball. Gave up 6 hits overall. And Tom, you were talking earlier about how half of those hits were just little bloops that just fell right in there. I imagine Matthews for the 7th, Hoover for the 8th, and then Aroldis Chapman if they can hold the lead. Matthews has been good since being picked up by the Reds off the waiver wire from the Angels. Has kept the ball in the ballpark, really, for the most part of his last few years in the major leagues.
Three and 2 the count now.
Well, you got to throw a strike right here. You got a 2-run lead. You don't start it off by walking the first batter you face. Good job.
Negro on to Votto, and that's out number 1 here in the Tigers' 7th inning. Final numbers on Lorenzen, as Chris mentioned, the 6 hits and 2 runs earned. 3 walks, 1 intentional. That was to load the bases in the 5th.
Yeah, Ryan Matthews has got to be thinking to himself, he hit the jackpot.
Yep.
I mean, you're stuck out there on the waiver wire with the Angels. You're wondering if anybody's going to pick you up, if you're going to get a shot in the major leagues right away. He goes picked up with the Reds, and not only does he get picked up with the Reds, but here he is in late relief in a winning ball game with an opportunity to nail down a really nice job here in the major leagues with, you know, some good service this year. I mean, the opportunity is wide open for him. He's got a little intensity going out there tonight.
Well, back-to-back ground balls. This one will take care of Iglesias. So Matthews, so far, so good. Lorenzen only fanned 1 tonight. Goes to show you how sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that strikeout number really doesn't mean a whole lot. Now, you don't say it entirely, especially in the postseason. There are a lot of moments in the postseason where it seems like you need the punch-out for whatever reason.
Well, you have punch-out pitchers pitching in the postseason.
The teams that are winning normally do. Nice glove flip and the barehanded catch by Votto on a pretty good bunt right there by Ghost.
Opposite of what normally happens.
Really nice inning for Matthews. Now, Chris, you've been talking about him and how impressive he's been, and he is tonight. Up with you after the ball game, and we sure hope that you and we are talking about a Reds win. They lead 4-2 as they bat here in the top half of the 8th inning. Alex Wilson came on in relief of Kyle Ryan. Wilson allowed a bloop single to Billy Hamilton, which drove in a very important second run in that 7th. All 4 runs charged to Kyle Ryan in his 6 1/3 inning. Negron, Phillips, De Jesus in the Reds' 8th. J.J. Hoover cranking it up in the bullpen. And Chris, as you suspected, it will be Matthews in the 7th. Looks like Hoover in the 8th as Negron has gone on strike. So for 3 tonight for Christopher. And then, of course, Aroldis Chapman in the 9th of the Reds lead it. Brandon Phillips 1 for 3, had a single in the left field his last time up. Giants over Seattle earlier today, 6-2 in the 7th inning. The Pirates have a 3-0 lead over the White Sox. Pirates are red hot. Brandon has his 2nd hit in a row. Both of them through the left side of the infield. That Pirate team now, Chris, is 10 games over 500. If they're able to nail that one down over the White Sox tonight, and it would be the Pirates' 6th straight win. Although the Cardinals won their 5th in a row earlier today.
They beat the Minnesota Twins.
You know, we didn't talk about Bud Black getting fired in San Diego. This is 9th season as manager of the San Diego Padres.
And a real interesting choice for interim manager, at least between now and the end of the year.
Yes.
Pat Murphy.
Yes.
Former college head coach.
Hugely successful collegiate head coach at Notre Dame, where he built a powerhouse program. They've never been the same since he left. And then he really stepped up to the big leagues as far as the traditional baseball collegiate power is concerned when he went to Arizona State University. But then he fell under a lot of tough times, personally and professionally, when there were all kinds of infractions, at least alleged infractions at Arizona State, and worked his way up from the very bottom when given a chance to get into professional baseball, and now the skipper. That's all for Wilson. He allows hits to Phillips and De Jesus. We're going to bring in Kroll to face Votto when we return. scored against Michael Lorenzen in the first inning on a single by Miguel Cabrera. The Reds only had one hit through the front four, and that changed with a leadoff man in the fifth. Frazier, a home run to left, tied the game at 1. The next batter, Jay Bruce, snuck one inside the fair pole down the right field line, giving the Reds a 2-1 lead. Tigers tied the game in the fifth, but then Frazier again in the seventh, leading off the inning. Straightaway center field. Reds got a base hit by Billy Hamilton to make it a 2-1 lead, and that's where they stand here, batting in the 8th. As Ian Kroll takes over on the mound, the left-hander to face Joey Votto, and that's ball 1. Only the 8th game for Kroll. And you saw 3 walks in, 6 innings? And struck out 7.
Only 24 years old, Kroll is, from Hinsdale, Illinois. Already been traded a couple of times, drafted by the A's, acquired by the Nationals, and then traded to the Tigers.
Hinsdale, I believe, is a suburb, a western suburb of Chicago.
You would know.
I think that's right.
You're right about that. DuPage County. Votto trying to hang in there as much as possible. He realizes that pitchers more and more often now, he shows that power going the other way. And they're going to more often pitch him inside, and he's trying to hang in there as best he possibly can.
Well, he's looking for something to hammer here. 3 balls and a strike.
It's an imperfect science, is it? You know you're getting a fastball on a 3-1 count. You get the fastball, it's out over the plate. You put a swing on it, and you're just a fraction of a second late, and you foul it off.
Phillips at second base. De Jesus on at first. And there's ball 4, and they are loaded. And right back out to the mound comes Brad Ausmus. Will be another pitching change. 3rd pitcher Ausmus is used in this inning, and the 4th pitcher he has used over the last 7 batters. This is one area where the Royals have a huge advantage over the Tigers. And that's the bullpen. performer. Who else? Todd Frazier. Pair of solo home runs tonight, both of them leading off inning. And the second one, his 500th career base hit. And now he will bat with the bases loaded and one out against Al Albuquerque. Breaking ball is in there, a strike. Not bad numbers for Albuquerque. High walk total, striking out nearly a batter per inning. Opponents hitting 247. Well, they went from slow to slower there to get ahead of Frazier 0-2. Struck him out on 3 pitches. Can you believe that?
Well, for Albuquerque, that's his slider. It's kind of a weird pitch. He throws it about 10 miles an hour slower than his fastball, and looks like a changeup coming out of his hand.
Well, that's a big out. 2 away in the inning for Jay Bruce, and he takes low and in for ball 1. Reds with a 2-run lead here in the top half of the 8th inning, but they need a 2-out hit now by Bruce if they're going to add to it and give this bullpen a little extra wiggle room.
That's a mystery pitch right there, because it sure looks like it's a changeup, but the catcher's calling for a slider. It kind of comes out of his hand like a slider, and he throws more of that pitch right there to left-handers than he does a fastball. Look what I found. See, it just looks like he shows you the fastball, which is what he's done twice in the dirt now to Bruce. What he throws for strikes is that off-speed pitch. He's from Johnny Cueto's hometown.
Well, you've been down there.
Yeah.
Here's a 2-1. And Albuquerque, what a job. I mean, that's doing it right there. Strikes out Frazier, gets Bruce on a ground out. Reds lead is 2. We go to the bottom of the 8th. 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game Palette at Reds.com. As you know, voting is exclusively online. Vote early, vote often at Reds.com. We take a look at the National League updated balloting results, where for a second time Buster Posey of the Giants has leapfrogged Yadier Molina of the Cardinals. Cardinals right now have 3 players in the starting lineup. Goldschmidt, what an unbelievable year he's having, and Nori Chika Aoki. Is in the top 3 among National League outfielders. When we saw him, he did not even start. Reds played the Giants 4 games, and he started 1 game, the last game of the series.
Oh, he may start the All-Star game. Wow. I get the feeling you're not happy with the voting.
Look, I mean, you know what? I'm not going to lose any sleep over it one way or the other.
Have you voted?
No, so I should shut up.
Well, then
you're right.
Exactly right.
You're right. I shouldn't be shut up. All right, here's J.J. Huber.
This is one of those situations where the setup man in the 8th inning has really the tougher part of the lineup coming up, that if he is able to hold it, that a role as Chapman would have to get the save in the 9th. Number 2, 3, and 4 on the lineup. That includes Kinsler, Cabrera, and Cespedes.
Straight up in the air, behind the plate, and out of play. And by the way, for those of you wondering, I'm not suggesting that Aoki is not a good player. He's a good player. And he's having a really hot run here, really since the Reds last saw the Giants. He's playing a lot. He's hitting .324 on the year. He has 12 stolen bases. He scored 31 runs. Apparently the Giants fans are, of course, that could be a big Japanese vote as well now. We've seen that in the past. Of course, you know, we primarily saw it when Ichiro Suzuki was leading the planet in the voting, but there was very little doubt that he earned the vote to be a starter in the All-Star game year after year after year after year with Seattle. So I would assume that Aoki is getting a lot of the votes from the Far East. And of course, fans can vote all over the globe. Swinging a foul ball out of play. And that's a good thing. Two and two on Kinsler. Big inning here for JJ. Started to go around. No, says Tim Timmons.
Pretty good at bat here for Kinsler so far. He got down in the count, no balls and 2 strikes. And he's fouled off about 3 really good fastballs. JJ tried to fool him with that little slider down in the dirt. He'll probably come back with that number 1.
Line drive, left field, caught by DeJesus. A loud out for Kinsler, and that's a big out in a 2-run game with Cabrera coming up.
You know, the other thing you may think about with the vote for Norichika Aoki, and I was just reminded in a text message from Bob Crotty, is that maybe a lot of Kansas City fans who are obviously voting a lot out there.
That is a great point.
They could be voting for Aoki as well.
Great point.
He was a favorite there.
Was Bob the founder, owner of an incredible facility, the Green Diamond up in Montgomery. In fact, a number of the Tigers traveling party are looking into trying coming up there to visit the Green Diamond over the next 2 days while they are in Cincinnati.
I hope you put him in touch with Bob.
Well, Al Kaline, of course, Hall of Famer. You know, and the Green Diamond brings in Hall of Famers regularly to come in and speak to the members there. And, you know, outside of the Baseball Hall of Fame, nowhere has a greater collection of baseball memorabilia than does the Green Diamond in Montgomery. And so Hall of Famers come in all the time to speak. And Al Kaline has told everybody that's associated with the Tigers, if you're going to Cincinnati, you have to go to the Green Diamond. That's high praise from the Hall of Fame. 3-1 now on Cabrera.
Got a 2-run lead.
Straight away center field. Hamilton back to the track, will flag it down.
That is a huge outfield.
Well,
Can you imagine
20 to 7.
Can you imagine how many home runs that guy would hit at Great American Ballpark? I mean, Billy Hamilton, he was about halfway to Windsor.
420 to dead center here.
I think it plays bigger than that, too.
Cabrera hit 2 balls before the Reds got here over 450 feet in that direction over the weekend against Cleveland. You know, you really think about all the numbers Cabrera has put up, and neither stop in his incredible one-day-to-be Hall of Fame career has he played in anything close to a hitter's park.
You're right.
I mean, people forget Joe Robbie Stadium, Pro Player Stadium, whatever it was called, year after year after year in Miami. That was definitely not a hitter's park, and especially not a right-handed hitter's park. They had that huge wall. Now, directly to left field, yeah. But left center, remember, the wall jumped up and went really high, and it got really deep, and it zigzagged back in.
And they had a little nook that was 436 feet away.
Yep. And still Cabrera is he's a legitimate candidate for not only 500. I mean, he's closing in on that already. He's got a legitimate chance for 600 career home runs. And that is not much company in that zone. Straight up in the air, and JJ, couple of hard hit balls. One of them hit a ton that stayed in the yard. At the end of the day, it's a 1-2-3 inning against Kinsler, Cabrera, and Cespedes. Reds batter tonight, leading by 2. Has been brought to you by your local Toyota dealers, proud sponsor of the Cincinnati Reds. Right across the bridge into Canada from downtown Detroit, Michigan. You ever been over there while you've been in Detroit?
I never have.
What's over there? Is it any fun over there?
I suppose there's some restaurants and clubs over there. I don't know.
Oh, really? Okay. All right, we'll stay away from that.
Jabba coming in the ball game. Jabba Chamberlain having a good year too.
Job at one time, the #1 prospect, of course, in the New York Yankees organization.
Yeah.
All the build-up that you get in the media market capital of the world in New York.
Actually started 31 games for the Yankees in 2009. He's been solely in relief after that.
Well, you know, there's all the talk about his arm and, you know, did they do it the right way, and starter, reliever. You know, and all this kid wanted to do was pitch. And after getting out of, you know, New York now and having a chance to settle in with Detroit, as you mentioned, this year having a really good year. Pulled to the right side. We invite you to join us tomorrow night, and we'll kick it all off with the Reds Live 30 minutes before the start of the game, presented by Ray St. Clair Roofing. And you'll definitely want to join us tomorrow night. Why not come down to the ballpark and watch Johnny Cueto lock up with David Price, two of the top line pitchers, front line pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. Game time. Our game coverage begins at 7 o'clock with Chris Welsh and Jim Day. And, of course, Chris will be part of the pregame, as will Jim, on Reds Live. Brian Giesenslaw, Jeff Pecoro. Here's Dominguez. Dominguez 0 for 3 is grounded to short, struck out, and bounced to third. Aroldis Chapman will perhaps get a save chance depending on what happens here in the Reds' top of the ninth inning against Chamberlain. There's a tapper. That is a fair ball, and down the line it goes. Castellanos thinking about barehanding that ball right underneath his hand, and that is a double for Dominguez.
You know, we mentioned it, that it's very difficult to field a ball barehanded while it's still rolling. That's not even rolling, that's bouncing, and it took an awkward hop right over the third base bag. He's still checking the line. Wonder where that pebble is. Be a nice run to get in right here.
Well, the Reds missed a chance to really cash in the last half inning when they had them loaded. And only one out, but Albuquerque came in and did an outstanding job striking out Frazier and getting Bruce on a ground ball to second base. Was that ruled it's a base hit all the way? Yeah, double. Hamilton knocked in a run with a bloop single in the 7th inning. It came as a left-handed batter off the right-hander Alex Wilson. And naturally they play Hamilton to hit the ball the other way, dramatically so when you look into the outfield. And then J.D. Martinez all the way over to right center. Well into left center is Ghost, and very shallow is Cespedes in left. 3 balls and no strikes on Billy Hamilton.
Well, there's nobody really holding Chris Dominguez on at all. So a base hit is going to score Dominguez. They've pretty much decided to plug the holes in the infield rather than trying to hold the runner close.
One on Billy Hamilton. Dominguez, a runner out at second base. 1 out in the inning. Chamberlain a glance back. And a bouncing ball to the left side. And the ball hits Dominguez in the back. It rolls into foul ground. And the Reds will take that run. Thank you very much. That's a very sloppy play by Iglesias.
These are 2 bad decisions that have led to a run. And now a runner in scoring position. Dominguez gets high fives. He goes on to third base on this ball. And a backhanded play by Iglesias just nicks him on his arm. But there was really no throwing lane there. The third baseman, Castellanos, got to be on the other side of the bag there if he's going to receive that throw. So the Tigers defense, which a lot of people have thought has been a major improvement on this ball club this year, has cost him here in this 9th inning.
Christopher Negron, the batter, looks at a breaking ball low. Negron 0 for 3, is grounded to short, bounced to third, and struck out. So a 5-2 Reds lead. Negron waiting, Chamberlain a look back, Kinsler edging over near the bag. And that slider. Negron missed it by a foot.
See, that's what Billy Hamilton would have to deal with if he were to give up batting left-handed. His negotiating right-handed sliders. It's a whole different approach you have.
One ball and 1 strike. Hamilton was thrown out for only the 5th time trying to steal this entire year. That was after he knocked in the run with a bloop single in the 7th inning.
Now they're holding him close there now. Kinsler is very tight at the bag. In fact, he's pulling at his pants like, okay, let's try a pickoff move here.
Hamilton with a huge lead out there, and he'll draw a throw, and he's out. Hamilton standing on the bag as if to say to Brian Price, you might want to take a look at this.
Well, I mean, we looked at it and we saw the second baseman picking at his leg. That's the old age sign. He doesn't even have to time it.
Brian Price still looking, and he is going to challenge, it looks like. Yep. So again, we talk about it all the time, but the decisions to be made, confirmed, stands, or overturned.
It's a good view we have right here. We got both managers, the crew chief in the middle. It's like the prosecutor, the defense attorney, and the judge. What do you think? How's it going to go?
Well, you know, Chris, we've been studying juries for a long time. And we brought in all the forensic folks, and we brought in all the legalese experts, and we've had F. Lee Bailey come from this side, and it's going to stand. Billy Hamilton is picked up, and he's out.
Well, at this point, Brian really has nothing to lose by challenging that. It's kind of an icing run anyway at this point with a 3-run lead.
Took 1 minute and 40 seconds for that decision to be rendered. And now bunting is Negron. Chamberlain gets there and throws him out. That'll win the inning. So it will be a save chance for Aroldis Chapman. Martinez, Collins, Castellanos due up. By Miller Lite. Reds went back-to-back, trailing 1-0 in the 5th inning. Frazier to the barely clearing the wall and left, and then Bruce just tucks it right inside the fair pole. Reds took a 2-1 lead. That was in the 5th inning. Tigers tied the game in the bottom of the 5th with a base hit by Cespedes. The inning ended when Joey Votto threw a runner out trying to score the go-ahead run at the plate. And then Frazier led off the 7th inning with a home run to break the tie. Reds added another run in the inning on a single by Billy Hamilton, and then scored another run against Java Chamberlain in this 9th, setting the table, trying to close it out and give a win to Michael Lorenzen is the electrifying Aroldis Chapman.
30th game overall for Aroldis. He has 13 saves. He is averaging just about 15 strikeouts per 9 innings.
Just the one blown save for Chapman. And that, of course, was in Philadelphia, his first blown save in almost a calendar year. And it was the first home run he had allowed in almost a calendar year. That one sails way outside at 101 miles per hour. Martinez, Davis waits on deck. Would bat for Collins, it appears. And then Castellanos. That one a mere 99 to even the count. (101 miles per hour). Now imagine, it's funny when the Reds go on the road, And in a ballpark like this where, you know, you'll play this team every 3 years, but you don't necessarily have to play them in this ballpark every 3 years. Reds haven't been here since 2006. So, you know, for the overwhelming majority of people in this ballpark, they are seeing Aroldis Chapman for the very first time. And they're looking up on that board, and they're looking at 101, 101, and this 101.
Well, that 101 is so impressive, we will call that our flamethrower. Brought to you by Cholula Hot Sauce. He came in ready to go. I mean, we've seen in the past Aroldis those first few pitches around 97, 98. Not tonight. Triple digits right away.
You know, we have just, you know, been spoiled by watching Chapman, and you don't know whether some of these rumors are true. Would the Reds consider trading Chapman at the deadline or before the deadline with a year left on his contract? I mean, all those rumors are swirling. One the other day that the Reds are having conversations with the Washington Nationals. I don't know what is or what isn't. What I do know is it has been an awesome experience to watch this guy come to America with this arm. Lord knows, blessed with an incredible amount of talent. And really, he has gotten better and better every year that he has been here. And the debate will rage on and on, perhaps for all eternity, is what the Reds should have done or could have done, as opposed to staying with him as a starting pitcher. But certainly it puts it all in perspective when you come to a place where they've never seen him, and we see him so often that you take it for granted. He did things last year in a number of different categories that have never been done in the history of baseball by any pitcher. Whether it was the consecutive appearances by a reliever with a strikeout, averaging over 17 strikeouts per 9 innings, which has never been done. A fastball averaging triple digits, never been done. Didn't give up a home run for the final 4 months of the season. This guy is sick.
Now that's a pitch that's pretty much unhittable right there if you start chasing pitches up out of the strike zone against Aroldis Chapman. You know, you did the interview with him last year in spring training time. Ever since that time, you guys have gotten closer and closer. Be kind of tough to see all the rumors swirling around out there.
I wanted to see the guy as a starter. Because, again, you talk about being fortunate. I was fortunate enough to watch the most dominant left-hander in a generation every 5 days. And what he meant to a franchise. And I thought this guy would be that guy. And I'm talking about Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
But that ship has sailed. So it's a pleasure to watch him now. And
well, he is on his game tonight.
Yes, he is.
One pitch away from punching out the side.
Castellanos behind 0-2. And he loops one into center field. Hung a slider, did Chapman there. Or was that a changeup, Chris? 90 miles an hour.
That was a changeup, I believe. And he's laughing because he just threw 2 fastballs right by him, and he decided to throw a changeup at 90.
Yeah, that had the movement of the change. Started to tail away from the right-handed batting. Castellanos.
He can read his lips. It's fun to see fans' reactions when they see Chapman the first time, but even more so for hitters. Although you don't want to make this interesting enough to bring around a guy that would really be interested in facing Aroldis Chapman.
No, you don't want to get anywhere near that.
There have to be some heavy heroics going on between now and then. The time Cabrera not do up for 5 more hitters.
There's a slider. And that's to get ahead 0-2. So Chapman now tries to put it away. Ahead 0-2. And here it comes. Fastball at 100 miles per hour, fouled out of play. I think it hit the mask of Pena first, did it not? And then went flying over the backstop. Pena a little bit shaken up. Remember, it was earlier in this game where the home plate umpire got hit. And the umpire giving Pena a lot of time to regroup. I mean, the velocity of the pitch, the velocity of it leaving the bat, and no more than less than a foot later, it's right off your face mask. 0-2. 103 miles per hour, that one says on the gun. 103. And 103-mile-per-hour fastball is strike 3 to McCann. The big fella was uber overpowering here tonight. Oh, man.
I mean, you talk about playing Powder River. Here it comes.